Well, hello everyone. I am coming to you on video. Anyone who knows me knows that I love pictures. Let's take pictures, let's pose, let's do all the things. But when it comes to video, not so much. It's a little different for me. I've never done a podcast or anything like that. But I wanted to come to you, and my initial purpose was just to showcase my support squad, because I have a village that has wrapped their arms around me for over a year now, and they are so awesome, and I am so blessed to have them. And so I just really wanted to showcase them. And then as I was preparing to figure out how I was going to do that, or what would be the best way to do that, something was laid on my heart, and it was to share my story, even if just with some words. When God laid that on my heart, I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, how should I do that? And I think the best way is just to be authentic. And I would say one of the things that kind of prevented me from wanting to do this is just making sure that I had drew that line, meaning that I didn't want to overshare and go too in depth into my personal, health challenges, but to share enough that I, maybe can be impactful to someone, that I can share a little knowledge of what I've gone through, that I can give someone some insight. And so that's really the purpose of this. So I'll just jump right into it. I want to say October of 2024, I got a call from my primary care doctor. And what she said to me was that my white blood cell count was down. And so she wanted me to return for lab work in like 30 days. And so she's like, but don't be fearful, don't be afraid. You can just have a really small bug that could cause your white blood cell count to be off whack, to kind of be out of order. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so in 30 days, she had already submitted the paperwork that to the lab. And so in 30 days, I went back and I had my labs repeated. And so I get a call from her like the next week, and she's like, yay, guess what? I told you everything is good. No issues. Your white blood cell count are normal. And so I was like, okay, wonderful, great, thank you. And so 3 weeks later, I get another call from my primary care saying, hey, we found some high levels of protein in your blood. And so I want to refer you to a specialist, to a hematologist. And I want to refer you to a hematologist because they specialize in blood and in blood work, and or they study blood. And so they would be able to run additional tests if needed, but also be able to maybe explain to you some of these numbers a little more. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so she kept emphasizing, once again, don't be anxious. They're going to give you a call. They're going to set up your appointment. And I thought, okay, And so when I got that call, these are my words, and my belief is that I know now why she was most likely being pretty adamant not to get over anxious, because when I got the call, it was from the oncology specialist of Charlotte. And I thought, wow, oncology, that's cancer, that has to do with cancer. And so they set my appointment up. I go into the office, and I will say that when I was sitting in the doctor's office by myself, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, wow, I'm in a doctor's office where they treat cancer patients. I see the infusions, I see, room, or like the hallway, there's the lab, and then everything, in the doctor's office is talking about some form of cancer. So I did feel a little awkward. So they call my name. I go to the back. The doctor that is there waiting on me is Dr. Caitlin O'Keefe. Awesome. She was so awesome, and she still is awesome. But I go back, and she has this whiteboard, and she's drawn a bone, and she's talking about, your bone marrow, and, how your blood cells are formed, whether they're white blood cells or red blood cells. And I was, like, okay, yeah, I'm getting a little lesson, and let me just take a step back. So I know some people call blood cancer bone cancer, but it's not. They're definitely two distinctive types of cancer. Blood cancer originates in the bone marrow, which I understand that's why some people may refer to it as bone cancer. But bone cancer, it actually starts in the tissue of the bone. And so I've had people say, "Oh, that's like bone cancer." And I'm like, "Nope, it's not." So I just wanted to, kind of put that out there. But anywho, she's going through everything, and then she pulls out another sheet, and she's going through the different types of multiple myeloma, and even like what happens before multiple myeloma, MGUS, smoldering, multiple myeloma, active multiple myeloma, and then there's certain criteria that you meet, and it, depending on that criteria, will determine where you are and your levels within those. And so, once again, just trying to like create that barrier where I'm not sharing too much. And so I would say I'm going to throw out some numbers, but don't take these numbers to heart. But it does give you an idea of where my numbers were at, because what she explained to me was that my numbers were just not high. They were literally off the chart. And so, for instance, if one number was supposed to be 19, it might have been 350. If another number was supposed to be 250, it might have been 3,000. So they were like way off the chart. And so she's talking to me and she's explaining all these things, and we can laugh about it now, but I just was not getting it. It was like I was having this total out-of-body experience, like she was talking about somebody else. And I was like, okay, well, I need to change my diet because of this protein, that you're finding in my blood. And she's like, nope, this type of protein has nothing to do with what you eat or how you eat. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I continue to listen. And like I said, thinking back, and I look at her, I can remember her face, and I think she was waiting for me to have that aha moment. And I just was not having it. So she continues on. And I think that day she probably explained it to me 40 different ways. And it was when she started talking about, treatment based on these numbers, is when I thought, is she talking about me? Like, wait, what is she talking about? And then, in addition, I never met Dr. O'Keefe before, but she had already made plans had already made appointments for my bone marrow biopsy and my PET scan, PET scan. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. And so then I had a total meltdown in the doctor's office. And I think she was waiting for me to get it. She can tell that I was not getting it, meaning that I was not getting that. What she was talking about, she was talking about me. And so, and how serious it was. And so, like I said, she is awesome. When I see her now, I go to the doctor like 2 times a week. Now it's been more like 2 times a week. Every 2 weeks. And I now sometimes go every 3 weeks to see her. But when I'm in the doctor's office, like I feel like I'm her only patient. Her due diligence, the way that she comes in with like all of her homework done. She has my test results. She's already looked into stuff. And so she knows this. I told her many times and that I feel like she was God sent. And I don't just feel like she was God sent. I believe and know that she was God sent to me. And so, like I said, I wanted to showcase my support squad because they have definitely been here for me. I told myself when I did this video that I would not shed a tear. And I can tell you now that my tears mean so much different than what they meant before. Now my tears mean joy. They mean hope. They mean faith. And those are the things that have sustained me along with my support squad. My Alabama State girls, my sisters, they rock. They came down here right before I was to start chemo for a few days. They came, I'm telling you, like, 8 different women from 8 different cities, 8 different states. They coordinated and they came. And my Dear Diva sisters have come down, my Women of Faith sisters, which consist of sisters and nieces and friends and other family members. The prayers have been awesome. And Women of Faith, we call ourselves WOF. We started like 6 years ago. We meet 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Very diligent. Not too often we miss a day. And so many other people have just wrapped their arms around me and just showered me with love, with food, with strength, with intercessory prayers, with so much. And so, like I said, this was the purpose that I initially wanted to do. And so I'm going to take a break and I'm going to showcase some of my support squad, and then I'll come back with a little bit more to say. Okay?
Hey Mia, part of Team Mia. Just know that God's word says the victory is won. By his stripes we are healed. Go Mia.
And if you threw a party, we invited everyone you knew.
Team Mia! Yeah.
And the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. Okay,
Wow! When I'm fans, rap, clap, 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 clap. Oh, I got my boots on the ground.
Don't even know it. Don't even know it. I don't even know it. But you doing it.
Whoa.
Put my shoes on now. Get my shoes. Get my shoes here.
Ground. When I'm fans.
Oh, give me hands.
Shut up, legs. Shut up, legs, man. Hey.
A few minutes later.
Okay, well, I am back, and so as I left off, I was talking about my oncologist, because Dr. Caitlin O'Keefe is now what I consider my full-time oncologist, and also talked about my primary care. And so after I had seen Dr. O'Keefe, I did get a call back from my primary care doctor, and what she said to me was, Mia, I got your test results back, and I did start doing a little bit more digging just to make sure that I was on the right path. And as I was digging and doing a little bit more deeper dive into some of your lab works, I kind of stumbled upon this. And so what I said to her was, you didn't stumble upon this. God brought this to you. And that's what I truly believe, is that God brought this to her. With multiple myeloma, a lot of times individuals do not find out that they have multiple myeloma until it's like full active multiple myeloma. And so mine was caught early, and so I feel very blessed about that. And so, but I was very grateful that she was waiting to give me that call just to kind of explain. And so that made me feel good as well. Like I said, before I even met my oncologist, because my numbers were so high, she had already scheduled the tests that needed to be done. And so I went and had my bone marrow biopsy. I had my PET scan. And so in the midst of that, because my numbers were so high, my oncologist, Dr. O'Keefe, wanted me to go see some doctors over at the Levine Cancer Institute just to see, before we actually started chemo, just to see if there were any type of trials that I would be interested in. And so we made that appointment, and I went over there, and I think we went over maybe about 3 trials that were in process. But I opted not to go with those just for my own reasons. Not that they don't work. I don't want to say anything bad about them. I think for me, there probably wasn't enough information. And so I kind of chose to go the chemo route. So let me say this, I have to do chemo by pill for 24 months. And so I know that God can do all things, right? But scientifically, there is no cure for multiple myeloma. What they do is they send it into a deep remission. And so that is what's going on. Is the goal is to send it into deep remission where it will never show its head again. And so I believe by his stripes, I am healed. And so I can stand here today and say that and believe it and stand on God's word. But like I said, my numbers were off the chart. And so just trying to depend on or determine like where that treatment would happen. And so there's times where, my white blood cell count number dropped too low. And so it's finding that sweet spot even with the chemo on pill, finding how much I should take. And so I do 21 days on, 7 days off, and I have to do that for 4 months. I am in my 14th month, of treatment, and hasn't all been good. And so like I said, I found out about this, and there were days where I just woke up in a, is this really me? Let me pinch myself. I didn't even tell anyone. And I finally told my oldest brother, and I said, do not tell Dad, do not tell anyone. I am telling you this, but I'm still trying to get through it myself. I'm waiting for more test results to come back. I want to say for the first 2 weeks, I probably, went to bed with tear-drenched pillows, woke up to tear-drenched pillows. And I was just trying to figure out, how do I handle this? And I had to have some real conversations with myself, like, what does this mean for me, my life, and, on this side of earth, and, and so once again, my support squad, I told people in sales, because like I said, I had to get through it. And so after we shared with my dad, and I, told some cousins and had them keep it to themselves. But people, you got to have someone who can stand with you in prayer and intercede on your behalf. My goodness, I tell you, I have my notes here because I just don't want to leave anything out. I tell you, I just couldn't have gotten through it without, number one, the man up above, and number two, having that support squad to stand in the gap for me. And so once we decided that I was going the chemo route, got started on that. My doctor took me off work, I think, for the first 3 months just to get my body a chance to get used to it. And like I said, once again, find that sweet spot to kind of regulate me being nauseated and the fatigue and all the things that comes with this. And so like I said, I wanted to be impactful. I wanted to share, especially with my sisters, with the women. I blamed everything on menopause. I was having backaches, and everything ached. I think from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. I walked down the steps, my ankle would hurt. I would turn a certain way, my back would hurt, my legs would hurt. I would bump into something very lightly and would end up with a bruise, or sometimes would have bruises, and because they were so subtle, I don't even know what I bumped into, what I did, because it was nothing. But these are all symptoms of multiple myeloma. Like I said, it's not a blood cancer, but it does affect your bones. And so I also was diagnosed with osteopenia, which is the level below osteoporosis. And so with that, I now do injections every 6 months to help strengthen my bones, because what that said was that my bones are weak. But once again, I had to look at the brighter side of it, and that was I don't have osteoporosis, I have osteopenia, and we're already started treatments to keep me from going to that next stage. And so, like I said, blame, and I know I talk to friends and we blame so much on menopause and we blame so much of getting older and going through the change. But what I say is just think outside the box. If it doesn't feel right, this is your body. Advocate for yourself. There was times where I felt like I was asking too many questions, or maybe I was being a little bit overbearing, but I knew I needed answers. And even with menopause, it's like, what can I do outside of the hot flashes? Like I said, I was having all these body aches and I was complaining every day. Like, I hurt. Everything hurts. I used to say, I feel like my bones hurt. And so, like I said, once again, just attributing all of that to menopause, going through the change. And I would say, if it doesn't feel right, like I said, just go get it checked out. It's better to be safe than sorry. And so, I just want to, encourage people to, when you get your annuals, you get your annual physical, there's a panel of blood work that's being done. Do your research. Are there other, lab tests that can be done? Especially if you're feeling a certain way. Be very open and honest with what you're feeling with your doctors. And ask, what could cause this? Maybe it is menopause, but guess what? Maybe it's not. I just want to say that because I think for me, I had just attributed a lot of these things to that. And so, as I continue to go through, once again, my support squad has been so awesome. It's so long, it's so big, and it's so strong. I remember there was times where I just was not eating. And so, big shout out to my cousin Anjanette and my cousin Tracy. And they were like, hey, we're going to start a meal train. And you guys blew my mind with the meal train and how that happened. I was like, if it's in my face, I may eat it. But if it's not in my face, I wasn't even thinking about eating it. And so, it happened when my son had some nuggets and I kind of walked past and I took a bite of a nugget. And so I was like, I think that probably was the only thing I had eaten that day. And so I realized if something was there, then I would eat it. And people were reaching out saying, how can we help? What can we do? Can we come there, and help you? We can come stay, and we can all rotate and help you out. And I was like, the biggest thing I probably need is food. And so they set up this meal train. And like I said, you guys blew my mind. The gift cards that came through, woo, my goodness. I mean, you guys showed out. And so it was so easy for me to pick up the phone and to order some food and have it here. And even if I didn't eat it when it came, at least it was here and I had that option of eating it. And so I just really thank you. So many people, as you see, they have the Team Mia shirts, but there are individuals who didn't get a chance to get a t-shirt, that I want to give shouts out to. And so Teresa, she's a neighbor, old neighbor, become friend of mine. She's been awesome. Sonia and Butter, or Cedric, AKA Butter, they fixed meals. They came over, they visited me. Kim and Ray, that's here in Charlotte from Detroit. I mean, people were just blessing me. Tiffany, which, Evangelist Tiffany Andrews. They helped me out with Cam. They cooked, they offered, all type of things. So the individuals that were here in Charlotte, stepped up and showed out. And the individuals that were not here in Charlotte stepped up and showed out. And then last but certainly not least is my son's family, Cam's family. You know, Kim and her children, Robin, Cam's grandmother, they have been awesome with helping me with Cam, with, you know, cooking me food and, you know, just checking on me and seeing about me. So those are some people. My god sister Renelle in Texas, my godmother Darlene, my godmother is who was featured in the first video, my godmother Joyce. So my godparents are just awesome. My godfather Atlay, you know, and so they actually are in the video, but just want to give an additional shout out to them. And my other god sister Tina, that's in Detroit. Just thank you guys for the prayers, for calling, for checking. I also want to thank my cousin Gigi, who has been awesome. She made me this beautiful glass cup, and it has the multiple myeloma. It says Team Mia, and then it says nobody fights alone, Team Mia. So Gigi, you rock. You come through every time, you know, so I just want to thank you. You guys have been awesome, you know, praying with me, sending me texts, sending me emails, gospel songs. I mean, like, I cannot express enough how happy you guys made me. And when I think back, I know that people have friends and people have family and they have their support squads. But I tell you, I'm just declaring right now that my support squad is the best in the whole wide world. And I just really want to thank you guys. Like I said, I know my story is not the only story, but I did want to share my story in hopes that, you know, I can help someone, that I can be impactful, that I can help you think outside the box. And not, you know, we're all, I think back, you know, I think I mentioned it earlier in one of the videos that, you know, back in the day, WebMD used to be my best friend. And so, you know, we're good at self-diagnosing ourselves and going straight to Google and putting in our symptoms and coming out with what we think is going on with us. But I would just say, you know, once again, if it doesn't feel right, pray about it. Ask your doctor, you know, and don't be afraid to ask your doctors to run additional tests just to be on the safe side, you know. So once again, I'm just going to take a pause so that I can acknowledge part of my support squad. So I'm back. So one of the things I also just wanted to reiterate again was that had it not been for my primary, digging a little bit more, I don't think that it would have been caught as early as it was. So I just want to just keep saying, advocate for yourself. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't look right, then go see your doctor, do your research, ask questions that maybe you may feel that are stupid or dumb questions, but guess what? It's your health, it's your body. And so there's no questions that are stupid or dumb when it comes to your health. We're not health experts, as we seem to want to be after we do all of our searches on the internet. When I got diagnosed, I was going through a lot of challenges in my life. I won't speak on those, but a lot of things were just coming my way. But I tell you what, God had told me, I'm going to send a ton of challenges your way because I need to strengthen your faith in me. And I thought, wow, what does that mean once again? And then as these things start coming my way, as I was dealing through this, I thought, wow, there you go. But I tell you what, I felt so lucky. I know some people say, don't say lucky, say blessed. But I tell you, I felt so lucky and blessed that God had revealed that to me. Because what it did is it gave me an anchor. It gave me a foundation to lean on. So I thought, wow, every time something came my way, I'm like, you told me, God. And so I was able to stand and lean on that word that you told me that challenges were coming my way. But what you wanted me to do and what you needed me to do was lean on to you and to strengthen my faith in you. And so I would tell you, first and foremost, that was my support. I thought, wow, this is awesome to be able to know this. And so whenever I would get off track or I would begin to feel a little fearful beyond my threshold or a little anxious, I'm like, God already told you what it is and what it was. So you need to do your part and you need to stay the course. And so in knowing that, I knew that I would be victorious. And so I just thank God because he sent people to minister to me, to minister, to my heart, to minister to my soul. I mean, there were people who just sat on the phone and was quiet with me, why I talked or why I cried or why I kind of let go some of my frustrations. They let me cry on their shoulder. They let me lean on their shoulder. And so I can't say thank you enough. And so I just wanted to leave you with that, make sure that you're doing your proper research. Ask all the questions in the world and do not self-diagnose yourself as I did. And like I said, attributed everything, every ache, every sore body part, every bruise, everything. I just, menopause. I'm like, there's days I would get up and I would feel like I couldn't walk. I'm like, I feel like I was ran over by a Mack truck. My bones hurt. And getting old is not for the weak. But I believe that I'm strong. And so I once again know by his stripes that I am healed. I know he would never leave me or forsake me. I know he is the great I am. And I can stand firmly on that. Over the last year and a half, he has brought me out of some struggles. He has had to take this mind and control my thoughts. He has humbled me. Like I said, there was times I had to have conversations, some real conversations with myself, like, what does this mean? Will I be here next year? I'll be honest. I had to have some conversations. There were some things in my life I had to get in order. And I was like, if I leave here today, what's the legacy I want to leave? And I knew that a lot of it really stood on what I believed in. It stood on my spirit. And so people say, oh, girl, you look so awesome. And I'm like, I'm going to always look awesome. That's my goal. You're not going to see me if I'm looking bad. And I must say that after 14 months, I feel a lot better. I'm a lot stronger. I'm a lot wiser. Things that used to bother me, they roll off. You look at life through a whole nother lens, right? A whole nother lens. So my perspective on life is so much different than what it was 2 years ago. I just want to be kind. I just want to be loving. I just want to help people. And I want to live a long life, and I want to do the works of God. I want to be able to help people. And I don't know who this might help, but I pray that it helps someone because this has caused me to be vulnerable in a way that I've never been vulnerable. And so, once again, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone. I don't like to name names because I never want to leave anyone out. But trust and believe, you are in my heart, you are in my mind, and I am so blessed, extremely blessed. Words cannot even explain how much I appreciate Team Mia, my support squad. You guys rock, and I know, not, mentioning God, because I know He's number one, but I know I would not be where I am without you guys, who I truly believe was sent to me to help me. So once again, thank you so much. I love you all. Bye.
All we're trying to say is you've been so faithful. I could never repay you, Lord, for what you done for me. How you loosed my shackles and you set me free. How you made a way out of no way. Turned my darkness into day. You've been my joy in the time of sorrow. Hope for my tomorrow. Peace in the time of storm. Strength when I'm weak and walk. I can never repay your love for what you done for me. How you loosed the shackles and you set me free. How you made a way out of no way. Turned my darkness into day. Been my joy in the time of sorrow. Hope for my tomorrow. Peace in the time of storm. Strength when I'm weak and